One of my fondest memories of childhood is actually about reading books. I still remember the very first time I started to read the Harry Potter books. And for those of you who do not know what Harry Potter book is, it's about a boy who on his 11th birthday gets a letter in the post which tells him that he is actually a wizard and he is invited to join a school of magic. Over the course of next 7 years and the 7 books that are released in this series, he spends a lot of time in this magical place, in a magical world, having a lot of adventures. But when I was reading this book, I was just 12 years old. Imagine my disappointment when I realized that I am 1 year too old to get this letter and I will not be a magician and I will not be able to take on these adventures. This was my first reaction, but this was not true in the end, because I was able to read all about it and imagine all those adventures, and it was not far from actually experiencing them. And today I would like to convince you to read more fiction books and why you should be doing it. But before I start convincing you, I have a couple of questions to see where my audience stands. So please raise your hand if in this year you have read at least one non-fiction book. Okay, a lot of people. And now raise your hand if you have read at least one fiction book. Less. This is what I expected. So for those of you who did not read any fiction book, I would like to convince you today that for the rest of the year, in the 4 months, you read at least one fiction book. And I will try to do that by telling you 4 points. The first point is empathy. We human beings are very complex. We have different personalities, we have different thought processes. When we look around ourselves, what we see are the results of the action that people are taking. But what we do not see is why they are taking those actions. How did they come to that position? But when you are reading fiction, a character's personality and its thought processes are laid bare in front of you. Whenever they take an action, you know exactly how did they reach that point and why did they take that action. It helps you to put yourself in the character's shoes. It helps you to experience what they are experiencing. And this can be extended to real life, because once you do it quite enough, you get into the practice of not judging people based on their action, but trying to understand why they reached to that point and why did they take those actions. This is empathy. The second thing, if you will read fiction, you will become more creative. What are books? Books are just words on a paper. That's it. There is nothing more. Everything that you get from more is from your imagination. When you read the book, you have to imagine the place that is being described, the people that are being described, the feelings, the emotions, the friendship, the relationship, everything you have to imagine in your head. Nothing is told to you or shown to you, like in a movie, for example. This puts your brain in a habit of imagining, and to solve creative problems, you need good imagination. So this reading fiction will help you with that creativity. Third point, it's about relaxing. Nowadays, we live in an age of social media. We have a lot of information coming to us from all the places. Our brain gets a lot more stimulation than, for example, 50 years ago or 100 years ago. So sometimes it happens that you are sitting and thinking about your real life problem and you want to concentrate on solving that problem. But some random thoughts are coming to your head which are not letting you not letting you concentrate on the solution. But when you are reading fiction, for a while, if a good fiction book will make you forget your real life, it will make you forget your real problems. For the time that you are reading that, in that reading session, for 1 hour, you are not present in your real life. You are not yourself anymore. You are in some other place, an imaginary character. But when you are done with reading and you come back to your real life, your mind is much more relaxed. It's much more calm. And when you start to think about the problems that you want to solve, your mind is probably better able to get to the solution. And the last point is it helps you to develop your theory of mind. You may ask, what is theory of mind? Theory of mind means that it is the capacity of us to understand that other people, other human beings have different emotions and feelings. We all develop this theory of mind from childhood to adult and all our lives. But what fiction helps us with, it makes it much faster and much better. So once you read fiction, you are able to understand and to predict, to to a more certainty what would be the reaction of someone if you would be saying something to them. So if I would be talking to you, if I have more theory of mind developed in myself, I would be able to better predict what would be your reaction to that point that I'm trying to make. My fellow Toastmasters, most of us are here today to develop the art of public speaking. And a big part of public speaking is actually storytelling. You tell stories to make people laugh, you tell stories to convince them about something, you tell stories to bring some idea out in the world. And to write a good story, you need creativity and you need a relaxed mind. You need to concentrate on your message and you need to use that creativity, that imagination to write a good, interesting story. But that's not all. You also need to deliver and you need to take care of what audience that you are speaking to. And those two other points, empathy and theory of mind, will help you to understand which audience you are speaking to and to help you predict what your words and story will have an effect on that audience. So reading fiction will make you a better public speaker. I would just like to close this talk by telling you a quote from a very famous author, which is that a person who reads lives 1,000 lives before he dies. And the person who never reads lives only one. I personally would like to live 1,000 lives, and I would like all those people who didn't raise their hand to live at least one more life in the next 4 months that you have in this year. Thank you.